Hi everyone, this is Tuplex. Welcome back. Today we're going to build our nuclear reactor. Before we get started though, since the last episode, I just recently passed 10,000 subscribers. It's really far more than I ever expected I would achieve with this channel when I started a few years ago. The growth has been slow, but that's kind of expected because I don't really do a whole lot to market my videos or do anything like that. So it's definitely just been some steady organic growth. And I'd just like to thank all of you for making that possible and for all the support and the views and the comments and the likes and all that stuff over the years. A big shout out to my Patreon supporters as well. I appreciate all your support immensely. Helps me keep going. Most of the time I really enjoy sitting down and making these videos, but to keep this going for several years as I have, there's always some times where, my enthusiasm is not as great as it was before. So there are times where it kind of feels like work, but when I think of all the folks who are watching and waiting for the next episode and all the folks who have, said nice things and donated financially even with Patreon, it really helps to keep me motivated and keep me going. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. And let's see if we can get another 10,000. Okay, so we've got nuclear processing up and running. We now have 110 uranium fuel cells built, with more to come. And we're cranking out a lot of uranium-235 now. Eventually, these machines will fill up, and then it'll start to overflow into our little storage down here. Now, at some point, we may need to add additional storage for the uranium-238. Once this storage gets full, if I don't do anything, then it'll just back up and this will stop. That'll probably be okay too, to be quite honest. It's not like we have to process all the uranium immediately. We've got more than enough to run our reactors. Okay, so speaking of that, let's talk about the reactors and their related components a bit. So here is a single reactor. It uses a uranium fuel cell. I'm not going to power it up just yet because I don't want to waste any fuel. As soon as you put a nuclear fuel cell in there, it'll start to be consumed. And once you put it in, there's nothing you can do to stop it. One fuel cell contains 8 gigajoules of energy, and all that energy gets converted to heat. Okay, so the job of the reactor itself is just to take the fuel cell and generate heat. That's all that it does. Now let me head back to my base so I can pick up some of these other components. I should have brought those with me, actually. Let me get down there so I can help explain this a little bit better. I'll just pick some up and then we'll take them back up there. Just to build something very simple, just so I can show properly how everything works together. Oh, and I have lots of inventory space in my Spidertron. Let's not forget that. Okay, so let's grab the steam engines. I'll just put those there. I've already got my reactors. And I want to get some heat exchangers and heat pipes, which I have down here. Okay. And I'll just throw those in there as well. Where are my heat exchangers? I know I picked them up. didn't I? Oh, here they are. Okay, let's get a few more. I was looking for multiple slots of those things. Okay. Yeah, and then I'm going to grab some additional copper and iron and steel just so I can handcraft some stuff in case I need to. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay, and let's grab some green circuits. There we go. Okay, something's being destroyed. Oh, he's going after my little wall over there. Alright, let's go take that guy out. Yeah, my turrets can't reach it yet. We don't want him breaking through there. I think I'll put down 1 or 2 turrets behind that wall. Just in case this sort of thing happens again. Okay. So, back to the reactor. As I was saying, the reactor itself only provides heat. And then the heat pipes, as the name suggests, are used to move the heat from the reactors to where it is needed. And in our case, we want to connect the reactors to a heat exchanger. So in its most basic form, you would have a heat exchanger someplace, say right there. Now the heat pipes you can connect to any of these 8 points around the outside of it where you see the little flame icon. Right, so right there is a connection point. You could do it there, you could do it there. It doesn't really matter as long as it's connected there someplace. Right, so you could have your single reactor there, go through a heat pipe, and then the heat exchangers also have a heat connection. In this case, there's only one. So you could have multiple heat exchangers. And if I'm not mistaken, the ideal ratio... actually, give me one moment. Let me check on this real quick. I don't want to speak incorrectly. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so for a single reactor, the ideal ratio would be to have 4 heat exchangers to a single reactor. Okay, now one reactor will give 40 megawatts of power. As you can see in the tooltip, it says constant consumption 40 megawatts. Okay, so we know that the fuel cell has 8 gigajoules. 40 megawatts is 40 megajoules per second, right? 1 watt is 1 joule per second. So if you do the calculation, you'll see that a single fuel cell will take 200 seconds to consume. And then once the fuel cell is consumed, the output will yield a spent uranium fuel cell, or a used up uranium fuel cell is what they call them inside the game. And then you can process that to get some of your uranium-238 back. Okay, so 200 seconds will give you a constant 40 megawatts. Good Lord. All right. I'm just going to send Spidertron over there. Oh, you know what? Hang on a second. Let me get all the stuff out of it first. Oops, sorry. There we go. All right. So you can see that water feeds in on the ends of these heat exchangers. Okay, so you would need a pump to pump in water. If you hover over the heat exchangers, you can see that they consume 10 megawatts each, which is why we need 4 for a single reactor, which is putting out 40 megawatts. So these will be able to take advantage of all the heat. And then you also see minimum temperature is 500 C. So the heat exchangers will not operate at all until the temperature of this heat pipe has brought these things up to 500 degrees C. And at that point, it will start to generate steam up to 103 per second. And it'll generate 500 degree steam. Now this is much hotter than the steam that we get from our boilers that we used in the early game. These will only make steam at 165 degrees. Okay, and then when we take a look at the turbines, you'll see that these, well, it doesn't say minimum, does it? It says max temperature 500 C, but in actuality, these won't give you full output unless you have 500 degree steam. Okay, so that's what will happen here. Once this gets up to 500 degrees, these things will start making steam, and then they can run the turbines. Now the turbines, let's see, consumption, they will consume 60 steam per second at full power. Okay, now these make 103 each, so maximum. So 4 of these would make 412 steam per second. Divided by 60 is about 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 7 steam turbines would be enough to run off of one reactor at full output. And then what you can do is just connect your steam outputs, connect those to the turbine. And this would be a very elementary reactor setup. If you just wanted to start with one reactor, you could do something as simple as this, and you would get up to 40 megawatts of power, which is quite a lot. I mean, if you look at right now, we're making about 130 megawatts. So just this one little setup here, and this could be made even much more compactly, right? We could put the reactor right there, for example. We could pick up these turbines, and let's pick up these two, and we could put those right there. And then the turbines need to be connected to the power grid. Do I have any? I don't think I have any substations with me. Right? So you could even connect those all with a single substation. And this would give you 40 megawatts. So as you can see, it's very compact. Compared to solar, you know, how much solar do you need for 40 megawatts? Well, about a quarter or a third of all this will give you 40 megawatts. So this is why nuclear is a very attractive option, especially for the late game where you need lots and lots of power. Okay, now when you start to add multiple reactors, things get even more interesting. So if you look at the tooltip at the very bottom, it says output 40 megawatts plus 0% neighbor bonus. And you can see in the tooltip at the top, it says uses uranium fuel cells to generate heat. The heat output increases when built next to other reactors. So we would like to take advantage of that. When you put a second reactor next to this one, for example, in this case, each one of these reactors will get a neighbor bonus. Okay, so we could connect them like that, for example. The neighbor bonus is 100% per each adjacent reactor. So whereas this reactor would normally only make 40 megawatts, if I were to put two reactors side by side, and it doesn't show the neighbor bonus until they're fueled, okay, so that's why it's saying +0 right now. But this reactor would then be operating at 200% output because it's getting a neighbor bonus from this one. And this reactor would also be operating at 200% output because it's getting a neighbor bonus from this one. So, pardon me. So when you put two reactors side by side, rather than merely doubling your output to 80 megawatts, for example, you actually quadruple it because you're getting another 40 megawatts of base output from your second reactor, and then each one is getting 100% bonus from the one that's next to it. So two reactors would give you 160 megawatts instead of just 80. And you can go on like that, right? So in this case, this gets even better. A 2x2 grid will give you 480 megawatts because now each reactor is getting two neighbor bonuses. One from, this reactor, for example, will get a bonus from this one and a bonus from this one. So this reactor is now putting out 300% output, or 120 megawatts. And so is this one, so is this one, and so is this one. The neighbor bonuses do not work diagonally. They only work vertically and horizontally. Now, I'm only going to start with 4 reactors, but if you had more reactors, if I were to do this, for example, a 2x3 setup would give you 800 megawatts. Because now these two reactors in the middle are getting even more neighbor bonus. Because these two now have 1, 2, 3 reactors touching them. 1, 2, and 3. So each of these now will be putting out 160 megawatts, and then each of these on the end will be putting out 120 megawatts each. So you can see how your power output just really starts to multiply as you add more and more reactors to your setup, assuming that you're able to put them all together. Now, one of the problems is, since your output grows, the number of heat exchangers and turbines that you need to run it also multiplies. So whereas with a single reactor, we only need 4 heat exchangers and 7 turbines, with a 2 reactor setup, you need 16 heat exchangers and 28 turbines, right? And with a 2x2, you need 48 and 83 respectively. Okay, so none of this stuff gets any neighbor bonus. You just have to add more and more of it. So the ideal arrangement for nuclear reactors would be just to have one single column of 2 reactors wide going as big as you want to make it. But the problem with this, like I said, is you just have to start packing in an insane amount of heat exchangers and turbines, and then it's very hard to get everything connected. And also once your heat pipes once your runs of heat pipes start to get long, it gets harder and harder to transmit heat all the way out to the ends. So you start to run into space constraints and some efficiency problems in the transmission of the heat along the heat pipes. So for that reason, most of the time what I'll see are smaller arrays, you know, like in this game, what I'm going to show you guys is a 4x4 array, or a 2x2 array, sorry, 4 reactors in a 2x2 array. And it's fairly easy to build. And then when you need more power, you can just make another copy of the 2x2 array. I mean, you're giving up some of the potential neighbor bonus by not having, you know, taller stacks of reactors, but you're still getting a significant boost in output even just by having 2x2. Okay, so let's take this apart, and I think I'm going to need to go and get more. I think I'm going to need to go and get more material to make substations and stuff. But so when it comes to a 2x2 where you need 48 exchangers and 83 turbines, the design starts to get a little bit tricky, and I've never been very successful at designing an array that is very compact and looks nice and does everything perfectly. So usually what I choose to do when it comes to nuclear power is looking for someone else's design on the internet and then grabbing a blueprint. And that's what I've done here. And the design I've decided to use is coming from a Reddit user called unique_2. And this is from a Reddit post 3 years ago. I'll include a link in the description for this video. But he put out this blueprint book called The Nuclear Blueprint. And it's got this really nice, fairly compact and symmetrical design with 4 reactors. And it's also got some control circuitry, which we'll explain. But for now, let's just go ahead and build up what we can here. And I think I'll have enough. I think I'll have enough turbines and heat exchangers and stuff. And then I'll try to explain, at least as best I can, how this works. If you do go to the Reddit post, he explains, you know, in detail how the design works. And he's got a few features in here that I haven't talked about yet, which we'll get into shortly. And those features will help conserve fuel. Now, as I mentioned, the reactor will consume a fuel cell in 200 seconds. And that is independent of... What is this waiting for? Pardon me a minute. Okay, I wonder why my bots aren't working. Oh, okay, there it goes. So, as I was saying, the reactors consume fuel, 1 fuel cell every 200 seconds. And they will consume that no matter whether you need the power or not. And that is one drawback of the nuclear reactors in Factorio. It's not a variable rate of consumption like it is with our initial steam power, where it'll only load fuel if we need the power. In this case, the reactor it'll load fuel whenever it needs it, and it'll burn the fuel at a constant rate, no matter how much power you need or don't need. So it's if you want to be as efficient as possible with your fuel, it's advantageous to find some ways to only load a fuel cell into the reactor if you actually need the power. And that's what this does. And it does that by using fluid storage tanks to store steam that is not being used. The steam turbines will only consume steam when power is needed. Okay? The reactor will make heat constantly, whether we need it or not. But the turbines will only consume the steam when you actually need the electricity. So you can take advantage of that. So, even though this has the potential to give us 480 megawatts, if I'm only consuming half of it, for example, then all the excess steam that I can generate with the heat that's coming out of these reactors can go into these storage tanks, and then the control circuitry can monitor the storage tanks. If the storage tanks run low, then it'll insert more fuel into the reactors. Okay, but if the reactor is out of fuel and we still have a lot of steam stored up, then it won't insert any more fuel until the steam starts to run low and we actually need more power. So by doing that, it helps conserve your electricity. Okay, so I'm going to need 4 constant combinators. I need 1 arithmetic combinator. I need 15 deciders. I'm just looking for components here that I haven't made. I need a speaker. And then I need some more substations, some more pipes, and some more storage tanks. So we'll have to run back to town to get that stuff. All right. And then I'll stop by my pump jacks and do some repairs and replacements over there. All right, so let's just head back here for now. I did clear some bases that were close by here, but apparently that was not quite enough. Okay, so I'll need to pick up some plates and some steel to make more tanks. Let's grab some more pipes. Alright, I won't be able to get them from there. Well, I can handcraft more straight pipes. Let me get my plates first, so I can go take care of that outpost. There we go. Alright, how many more storage tanks did I need? 27. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 1, 2. And I'll make a few extra. I'll probably need to make some more pump jacks. Okay, I think I've got enough. Oh, those are gun turrets. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. need more substations still. How many of those did I need? 9 more. Okay, I need red circuits. Actually, I think I'm making those, aren't I? Yeah, I am. There we go. All right. Let's go back and finish building this. And then we'll have to hook up the plumbing. So this design is managed with logistics bots. So I'll actually need to get some logistics bots and take up there with me, because that is separated from my main network down here. So let me grab some logistics bots before I go. All right, there are 4 here. There's another 15. Okay, that ought to be enough. Somebody mentioned in the comments, he said, why don't I just turn off the biters in the console instead of constantly being frustrated by them? And I was like, yeah, that's why I usually play my games without biters. They just start to bother me after a while. In my next series, well, we'll see. But in my next series, I'll probably do that with no biters. Okay. All right, good. So this system has given us an alert that says a zero waste reactor is missing fuel or water. Okay. So one of the advantages of this system is that it will not operate unless it has water and fuel already available. Let's put in our logistics bots so they can go and pick up the fuel cells. And they'll bring them up to the reactors here. 5 each. Okay, and they still haven't inserted, which is great, because we don't have water yet anyway. Now, the first time we do insert the fuel, nothing's going to happen right away, because remember, we need 500 degrees before we start to generate steam, and that'll take a minute or two. Actually, it'll take more than that. It'll take, I think, something like 4 or 5 minutes to get up to 500 degrees. These are the water pipes, if I'm not mistaken. So let's hook those up. And there are 3 of them. And I think the wiki... I'm not sure if the wiki mentions how much water you need. Okay, but we can calculate that. If we look at our heat exchangers, at full power, these will consume 103 waters per second. And this design has, let's see, how many? This has 48, so 48 times 103 is 4, let's see, 40 times 10, 400, yeah, 4,800, more or less. Let's say 5,000 water per second. One offshore pump will provide us with 2,000 per second. Or no, I'm sorry, 1,200 per second. So this design needs 3 offshore pumps full of water, I think. Or maybe I need 3 on each side. 3 would give us 3,600. Yeah, I think I need 3 on each side. I don't think these connect. Yeah, they do connect from one side to the other. Okay, well, let's try it with 3 and see if that's enough. We may end up needing more water. All right, so I'll start by doing this. Is that the closest water? Actually, it looks like the closest water is going to be to the north of us. So maybe we get it from there instead. So if I go this way, I'm gonna have to run through all that stuff. And then from here, we can just copy these like this. I'll clear some space so I can actually see it. Oh, look who's here. I wish the base game had an option for longer underground pipes. With a lot of the heavily modded games, you can build pipes out of steel and other materials that give you longer underground distances. And I'm out of pipes. Great. Okay. Where's my underground pumps? 3. There we go. Okay, so we can do... Let's just do them over here. Oh, no. They won't all go in a row anyway. Okay, so I'll do one there. I'll do one there. And one there. Okay. Okay, great. Looks like I got enough to complete the pipeline here. Okay, and this is telling me that I'm still missing water. Yeah, so it looks like I got to feed water in the other side as well. Okay, so let's go back and get more pipes. And then we should be able to get it running. So I kind of touched on this when we were going through the nuclear fuel processing. That I don't bother going through great lengths to try to to try to control how much fuel I consume. So a lot of times when I'm playing a long game, I won't bother with all this control circuitry and storage tanks. I'll just set up the reactor and I'll just let it run, because I already know that with this amount of fuel processing, I already know that I can run up to 8 reactors nonstop without running out of fuel, right? So conserving fuel is not really that big of a concern for me. And like I said, once your game's been, once you've been playing the game for a while, after 100 hours of gameplay, the few little bits of fuel that you save at the beginning using something complicated like this is really going to fade into insignificance. So I don't find it to be totally necessary. But that being said, I think it is pretty cool to try to build things as efficiently as possible. Not to overconsume when you don't really need it. I think there's value in figuring those things out, and I think it's generally a good way to play the game, just trying to do things efficiently and not waste materials. So I do admire and appreciate designs like this, even if I don't always use them myself. And if you have a blueprint, why not just throw it down? It's not like you have to put a lot of work into it. But if I was building up, a base from scratch, I probably wouldn't take the time to build something like that myself. But in this case, we have the advantage of having someone who's already done the hard work to coming up with a workable design solution. Okay, so let's copy this, and this time let's be a little bit smarter about it. Let's copy 2 sets of pipes, and then that makes it a lot easier to place them down. And if I was using the tiling feature on the blueprints, I could probably do this even more quickly and easily. Okay. Cliff's got in the way. All right, let's make 3 more of those offshore pumps. And we can put one there. We can put one there. And one there. I don't like that. I don't want these pumps to connect. Or the pipes, I mean. There we go. Okay, and now our little alert that we don't have water has disappeared, so we do need to feed this with 6 water lines, which I think is a little bit more than what it needs. Okay, and now we can see that the reactors have fuel, and you can tell that they're fueled because the little window there is glowing green, and we got these green lights turned on. So let's check the conditions. This is on the fuel insertion. This is going to run when A equals 13. So where's A coming from? If fuel, okay. So if we have fuel cells, we get an A. One of these, I think, yeah, is counting steam. See this one, yeah, see this one's connected to this tank, so this will be checking to see how much steam. If steam is less than X, then that's going to output an A. And where did we see the X? Okay, so here we're setting X to 16,000. So if you wanted to adjust the amount of steam that you would require, or your minimum steam level to insert more fuel, you could just change this X value. Here it's 16,000, which is, I mean, one tank holds 25,000, right? Yeah, so 16,000 is, I don't know, about 2/3 full, más o menos, right? Here we send an A when we have enough water, so somehow in all these different variables that we're looking at, once we accumulate 13 A's, then it'll allow this to insert more fuel. Okay, so if we look at the reactors now, you can now see the neighbor bonus is plus 200% on each one. We can see the reactor temperature is now getting close to 500 degrees. And it'll require more fuel before we actually start generating steam. So your first fuel cell will do nothing more than just heat up the reactor. Now the good news is that when you stop a reactor, or if you stop inserting fuel, there we go, now we have steam. We're at 500 degrees or more. Okay, these last heat exchangers aren't on yet. And let's see what we're doing. Okay, so now we've got, that was upwards of 200 megawatts coming from our steam power. And now you can see we're starting to accumulate steam in the storage tanks, because we got plenty of heat, but we're only using about, let's see, 480. We're only using about 25% of our full energy capacity on these reactors. So we'll store up the steam. Okay, we've already put in another fuel cell. And then the spent cells are in these active providers. So we'll have to put in something to deal with those. But once this fuel cell is done, the tanks will probably be full, or mostly full. And then I think what we'll see is that the reactors won't get any more fuel after that until the level of steam drops below a certain threshold. And you can see that the steam temperature inside the tank is 500 degrees. And that's what I was starting to say earlier, is that the good thing about this design in Factorio is that once you heat these things up, the steam never cools down. So you can store 500 degree steam in here indefinitely, and it'll never lose temperature. Now the reactors, the only time the reactors or the heat pipes will cool down is if you're converting water to steam. When you convert water to steam, then it will pull heat from the reactors. But if you're not making new steam and there's no fuel in the reactors, then it'll all just sit there at whatever temperature it finished at. Okay, and now it looks like we're not using any of the power. Okay, we've got solar now. So this will kick back in at nighttime. And in the meantime, we'll just continue to store steam in the tanks. So when there's no steam coming from the heat exchangers, the steam from the tanks will be allowed to flow through the turbines to make power. So that's kind of a way to store electricity without using accumulators. And when you think about it, one tank of steam that holds 25,000 units of steam. The turbines will consume 60 steam per second. Right, so 25,000 divided by 60. That's 416 seconds at 5.8 megawatts. Okay, so let's take 416 times 5.8 million. And that's 2.42 E9 joules of energy. How much energy does an accumulator hold? 5 megajoules. So one tank full of steam can hold a lot more energy than a single accumulator. Let's see. Can I divide that? Let's see if I still have that result. Yeah, I cleared it already. Okay. Well, anyway, one of these tanks will hold more energy than a whole bunch of accumulators. So that's why people usually use steam tanks on this instead of accumulators. So you can see that the fuel's no longer being inserted. We've got lots of steam available. When the steam in this tank up here drops below 16K, then it should insert more fuel. And since all the steam tanks are connected, they'll generally all have close to the same amount of steam. So you really only need to read the value on one tank rather than combining them all. Okay, so let's set up a way to process the spent fuel. So what I will do is I'll get... Oh, do I need a centrifuge for that? I think maybe I do. Let's see, we can put that there. Yeah, nuclear fuel reprocessing. So what this does is it takes 5 used up fuel cells and it'll convert that into 3 uranium-238. Okay, so I'll just put a requester chest here. I'll do shift right click, shift left click, and then this will request the spent cells. And then I'll just do that. So whenever we have enough used up uranium fuel cells, it'll turn it back into uranium-238 and run it up to our storage area once again. And that's it. Okay, this is at 81. And this is at 80. So now this should be passing additional uranium every time it runs. Let's watch now. You should see the last one go by. There it goes. Right? So now we're just generating 1 uranium-235 every cycle. So we'll start to, well, as you can see, we're already accumulating quite a lot of fuel cells. And eventually this belt will back up and we'll start to store them in the chest. Okay, and you can see now the turbines are running without any fuel in the reactors. Okay, it's at a little over 16K now. So let's see what happens when the steam level drops below 16K. And then we should see we should see the inserters pick up more fuel and put it in the reactors. All right, I think it's below 16 now. Isn't it? Unless it's doing some additional math. Steam less than X. Oh, it says steam 55K. All right. So it must be... Oh, okay. It looks like it's counting the steam in all 4 of these tanks. So what's 55K? Let's see. What's 16K? All right, so it'd have to get down to 4,000 in each of these tanks before it inserts more fuel. Not 16. Okay, but you can see how this, especially at this point where we're not using a lot of nuclear energy, this will save a lot of fuel. All right. Well, if any of that is not clear, or if you want some additional explanation of some of this stuff, please let me know, and I'll do my best to provide some more info. Otherwise, I am going to end this series here. We've got through most of the basic and some of the advanced topics of the game. In the next series, I got some feedback from my patrons. A lot of folks said they would like to see me plan a large base using the space exploration mod. So I think that is what I'm going to do next. I'll do a little bit of planning over the next few days, and we'll get something started with that before too long. But in the meantime, hope this tutorial series was helpful. And once again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.